Hello, I'm Henry Bluefield and welcome to the channel. So my journey, creating this YouTube channel is all around sustainable wealth and different subcategories I've created within that. So I wanted to jump into what my journey was and how I've come onto this ambition of creating sustainable wealth and sharing content almost daily around exactly that. So I'll jump into my story and take you on a little journey of how I started, what my understanding is of sustainable wealth. So hopefully you find it interesting, and obviously if it is valuable, if you do like it, please make sure to like and subscribe and check out more videos. So what is sustainability to me? What is wealth to me? And they are two things that really interconnect in terms of my understanding. Yes, there's a definition of what it is in terms of sustainability being an act of something that you can perpetuate over time and it's not destructive. So for example, living sustainably is a way that if we all live sustainably, the earth would no longer suffer and we'd be able to perpetuate the existence of earth, disregarding natural disasters and such. And wealth, I want to dive into wealth in terms of different aspects of it. Yes, money, but also in terms of the mind, connections, relationships, and more. In my journal, I've really done a deep dive into this and looking at various different aspects. So some of it I'll read out and obviously talk on it in more depth. For sustainability, I've written in different things in different sectors and different components of my life. So I'll sort of read through and add a few different talking points on as we go. So sustainability, consistency is living in a manner that can perpetuate the thriving existence of Earth and nature and of all living organisms that help maintain the balance, but also living with the understanding of imperfection, extrinsic motivation and the commitment to improving. And that's a key fundamental of this. Is I'm not coming to you as an expert, I'm saying, like, disclaimer here, I'm learning massively, but the whole point of this video, the whole point of this channel entirely is the case of I'm on this journey, I'm learning a lot. I want to share every aspect of what I learn with you guys, and hopefully you will pick something up. You may know a lot of what you're watching, you may learn something new, but if you learn something new, hopefully you share it, or if you knew something already and you find it valuable, you can share it on with other people, and we can all go on this wonderful journey of building sustainable wealth. So I'll jump into different aspects, and so I've got financially, relationships, living, consumption, mind, energy, entertainment, and the environment. And I'll break these 8 down into what they are to me. So financially, it's creating a financial position that will support you in spending the time commitment to the activities you wish to fill it with, as well as facilitating the investments in the areas you wish to improve humanity while creating a desired lifestyle for yourself. What I'm saying here is it's all around, I suppose, being financially free, and that you don't have to commit yourself to a certain job or whatever. It's about following a passion and being wholeheartedly in love with what you're doing as such. So a lot of what I'm doing now, there's elements to my life that feel like a job. There's elements that, like creating these videos, I don't make any money at the moment, maybe one day. But I don't make any money at the moment, and I'll continue doing this. Even if I never make money, I'll continue making these videos because I just enjoy it so much. Intrinsically, it's so valuable to me to make sure that I do this for the multiple reasons. But if it does become an income stream for me, it's not about, I don't feel like as though I'm clocking in for work. I'm filling my time with things I want to do, and it's about creating a lifestyle where you are filling your time with things you want to do, activities. Even if your job you love, that's great, that's part of it. It's just make sure it is something that you do love and you're filling that time and you'd want to spend your time doing that. But as well, a key component of this is in building this financial strength is that it's not done in a way that is a detriment to society, to humanity or the environment. It's done in a way to uplift and bring along others and the planet along with you to ensure that all are benefiting. Relationships. So I've written building phenomenal connections, having wondrous conversations and raising the augmentation of knowledge over years, adding to that fountain until your life is no more, and sharing it with as many as possible so they too can benefit from it. In every relationship, that's your partner or partners, however you live, monogamous or polyamorous, whatever your preference, and in your friends, in your family, in work you do, the life you live, it's all around having these incredible conversations that you constantly feel like you're learning, and that's exactly what I want to do. I want to be surrounded by people where I'm constantly learning from, I'm constantly engaged with, and I just spend my time in awe of the conversation I'm having. And I have that a lot at the moment. Like, I'll sit in conversations and just reflect on the fact that, or I'll have this sudden epiphany and realization that I'm in such a wonderful time where I'm able to have such a lovely conversation, and so grateful for that. And I just want to continue that. And it's exactly what I want to do in my content in terms of creating videos and getting Benevolent Business, the podcast, back up and running so that I can have more of those conversations and share them with more and more and more people, build an audience, build a community where we're all thriving on these conversations and helping, utilising it to aid our own growth. Living. So living, I've got a dream home in a space that complements nature and facilitate sustainable living, i.e. being off-grid and creating our own renewable energy, growing our own food, and being mindful of waste, recycling or upcycling wherever possible. And I did a video on this talking about Andy Coteau on Fern Cotton's Happy Place podcast. Amazing episode, so do make sure to check out that podcast if you haven't, and in particular check out that episode, that conversation with Andy Coteau, because it was incredible. In terms of living, I've got my dream to have a lovely dream home. My dream is to have 10 acres, like eco mansion with like green wall, solar roof, and be completely off grid, growing a lot of our own fruits and vegetables, living sustainably, well, we'll go into other bits, but fundamentally on that place, creating our own naturistic haven so that we have pet cows, goats, multiple dogs, but not for the purpose, like I've had this conversation with cows, because I'm vegetarian, but I try to avoid a lot of cow's milk and such, and people are like, well, do you want to have milk and stuff? And I'm like, no, I just want a pet cow. They're lovely, they're wonderful, they're cheery and they have a personality, so I want to create a nice safe space for them to live in. Make sure I have a lake so that we can have natural water, have a lake so that we can have natural wildlife around that environment as well as having plenty of bees for beekeeping, like not to generate loads of honey from, but just bees being such a fundamental part of the survival and prosperity of the earth. We need to do what we can in order to accelerate their growth and make sure that their population survives and thrives. Consumption, so purchasing based on requisite need, but also for intrinsic indulgence, but not for extrinsic glorification. So what do I mean by this? Purchasing based on a need, so it's about not spending excessively and looking at what you are purchasing, how can you purchase it in a sustainable way and support local infrastructures. Yes, there's the great convenience of like Amazon, but what can we do to help out local businesses and ensure that if we can keep that money in local circulation, it has more power, your pound has more power locally than if it was put into a global corporation. Well, they'll do a lot with it, but they accumulate a lot of pounds. If we can keep it in a local economy circulating in that circle, it has a lot more benefits locally for you, as well as with your community. But I still want to be able to indulge. So it's about indulging intrinsically, looking at the things that you value and not externally based on gratification from those on social media and whatnot. How many of us are actually spending money? What's the proverb of spending money you don't have to buy things you don't want to impress people you don't know or don't like? And there is a lot of that in our society in terms of buying that fancy Louis Vuitton bag or buying that Gucci belt because you want to be able to take photos, post it on your socials so that you look cool and impressive to other people. But really intrinsically, what do we actually want? Like having a belt that has 2 little G's on it compared to a belt that doesn't has no difference fundamentally. It still keeps your trousers up, hopefully. But it's about still being able to live, I suppose, lavishly in a way, but it's about intrinsic to you. What does it mean to you? Like I've done like a whole video talking about owning a Tesla and what that means to me. And yes, there's elements that are extrinsic, but a whole bunch of it is intrinsically to me, what it means to me to own that vehicle. And that's the same with having my dream home and the space it creates and how it will be laid out is all around intrinsic values, and not to be able to go look at my flashy house. It's about, like, I love the idea of when I do like a house tour, it's not about look how much space we've got, look how big this place is. It's about look how sustainable it is, look at the ground source heat pump system we've got, look at the solar roof we've got, look at the green wall that we have externally to ensure that we can benefit nature with the existence of this house. Mind, creating a strong mental health and emotional intelligence in order to sustain challenges in life, to live in a state of contentment, fulfillment and happiness for myself and loved ones around me. So it's all around building a happy, healthy mind, making sure we're looking after ourselves mentally through, well, as I've said in other videos, talking about my own practice in terms of therapy, yoga, meditation, journaling, a huge part of that being journaling, of course, and the amalgam of all of those together, creating a much happier persona for myself and making sure I can do what I can to share that with others in video format, in conversation, in podcasting, whatever it is, over dinner, over a barbecue, over a day on the beach in summer. Whatever it is, it's just about sharing, building this great lifestyle, but uplifting others around me and seeing who I can bring along with me. Energy, be full of energy and zeal into incredibly old age, keeping physically active through nourishment, exercise and rejuvenation, and facilitating the opportunity to assist others to boost energy. So a lot of this is around things that I want to do and then bringing others along with me, but it's, fundamentally making sure I exercise a lot through skateboarding, through yoga, through all sorts of different activities, but also looking after myself with nourishment. So talking about well, going back to the conversation on Fern Cotton with Andy Coteau on Happy Place, talking about the actual quality of the foods we're buying in supermarkets that are massively produced, and while you may produce in mass numbers, that dilutes down the actual quality of the nourishment in the fruit and vegetables you're buying. And by actually being able to grow at home on your own land sustainably, you packing that full of so much more nourishment, it's so much healthier for you. As well as looking at other, like if you've heard of Heights, the brain supplements, that's something that I'd love to try out and actually start taking. But also other ways of just living a lot more sustainably, a lot more healthier, just to look after your mind, body and soul. And of course, rejuvenation. So it's about doing all of these things, not to excess, but to allow yourself to rest, to be calm, to take it easy, which I'll mention in a future point of like actually having lazy days, embracing them as part of the lifestyle. I struggle with them, but I've got a lot better at it. And knowing that you don't have to be constantly going, you don't have to be constantly exercising, constantly working, constantly trying to achieve and create and build something. Which brings us on to entertainment. Be surrounded by incredible humans, be entertained by those relationships, but still indulge in the lazy days. Create a life full of experience and read as many books as I can with that quiet time. Watch great movies, embrace wonderful cultures, eat nourishing foods, and host wholesomely ostentatious events that can be shared with few and many. So it's about interacting with people, having great evenings, and they don't have to be where I said about like spending and consumption around your basic needs, but also finding ways to still indulge and live lavishly to a certain extent, but it's about intrinsic values and creating experience around that, not about some sort of materialism and external gratification elsewhere. It's about having those intrinsic moments with people and sharing. Like if you've worked hard and created vast wealth and fortune, being able to share that with people around you and create these great experiences and give people access to things they wouldn't otherwise necessarily be able to afford or wouldn't want to spend, knowing that they've got to utilize their money on other things. So if you can build that surplus of disposable income where you can facilitate these opportunities for others, then why not share them rather than just keeping them to yourself? And yeah, so I still want to be productive, read lots of books in downtime and relax and watch videos and learn all around emerging technologies and more, but still it's about having those lazy days, sit back, watch film, eat chocolate and be lazy. I'll be like 5 minutes. And lastly, environment. So engage in activities to help the earth, find projects and donate to causes that help with the earth, explore and learn ways to improve our way of caring for the earth and share those lessons. So it's all around creating content, creating stories, finding great people, having those great conversations and learning so much more about sustainability. As I said, I'm at the start of my journey. I need to learn a lot more. I've got a lot of conversations to have, a lot of wisdom to gain, and the vessel is empty, it needs filling. There's a bit at the bottom, but it needs plenty of filling, and that's exactly what I want to do. And it's around as I said in like every point, it's about learning all this information, sharing it with as many people as possible to bring us all on board to this journey of sustainable wealth. But in terms of like building this lifestyle and thinking about it, it got me reflecting on like where was my earliest memories and earliest desires for sustainability, for wealth in terms of finances and both living sustainably and being, I suppose, rich in a way. And I think my earliest memory I remember as a child being really young, and when I started learning about recycling and rubbish and what the difference was, and the fact that rubbish meant the items would go to landfill and just sit there. And I really struggled to understand and comprehend how we could just have stuff that we threw away and it would just go off to somewhere else and just to sit there and lay till the end of time, just rotting away, or not even rotting. How long does it take plastic to break down if it ever does at all? And this concept of recycling, the fact that we could perpetuate that cycle, and it just meant that things were reused in another way and they were broken back down and restructured into something new, sat bet with me. And like, I can't even remember how old I was, probably barely more than a toddler. And I remember things that weren't recyclable, sneaking them into the recycling, thinking that it was just this decision that we wouldn't recycle, and therefore I wanted to sneak things into recycling so that they could be remade into something new. Obviously it doesn't work that way. And I have this like vision that I love the idea of one day being able to sit down with my grandchildren and tell them about this concept of rubbish and landfill, saying that as a species we would waste stuff in the sense of it was thrown away and it would just go to these holes in the ground or be thrown, end up in the ocean. And we used to have patches of desert that were just filled with old clothes and crap that we didn't want anymore, and people lived amongst these rubbish fields and everything would just be dumped there, and people would just go scouring it for hours to find stuff to reuse and utilize in their life. and have my grandchildren sit there just like in shock that humans would do something so wasteful and detrimental to the planet, and me have to explain to them and then just struggle to understand. Like, I'd love that to come to fruition one day and actually have that conversation with my grandchildren. I'm not sure it'll be that quick, but I'd love it to be. Although I can't, like, that's my earliest memory in terms of sustainability and the environment and being conscious of it. But I can't really recall my earliest memories in terms of wealth and financial freedom or building riches. But I think I was aware of money at an extremely young age. So when my dad left when I was 7, I became very conscious of like the bills therefore that my mum was responsible for, having the mortgage and having all these other bills associated with it. And I was, well, I say reminded, I still can't really remember that well, but my aunt was telling me of an anecdote when I was that young, like 7, 8 years old. I had saved like my pocket money, we're talking like pounds here, like a few coins or whatever, maybe 20 quid. But setting it aside and saving it up and then taking it to my aunt and being like, is this enough? Like, can I help my mum with this? Will this help pay the bills and such? It was quite a little proud moment of my younger self. But just, obviously I was very aware of the financial issues we had and the holdbacks that would create for us. But also alongside that was just seeing friends at school and other people having these things that seemed nice that I'd like the idea of owning. Can't really recall what I liked the idea. It was probably like, I don't know, CDs and albums or like DVDs, movies, or the ability to go out and do more things. But I mean, I never grew up without much. Like, I was always at different clubs and doing different activities, but just stuff. We wouldn't have a lot of stuff in terms of like new clothes, new football kits, that kind of thing. It was always a lot of hand-me-downs or like sale items or things you couldn't just have something, you'd have to wait until Christmas, birthdays, or just go without, just never have it. Which I think is quite a good way to grow up, to be honest. But on the point of, I realised that if I wanted to have something, I'd probably have to find a way to build that, or a way to gain that money myself. And then I made another video that I talked about how I started making my own money at 9 years old. So when I was in primary school, I started making my own money. And then as I picked up skateboarding from like 12 years old, I was at secondary school selling sweets, chocolates, fizzy drinks and whatnot, whatever I could sell in order to make profits, in order to fund skateboarding, so I could buy new boards, buy all sorts of new equipment, have money for days out so I could go to London, go filming, have money for trips so that I could be able to go on varying different days out across the UK. But so it became very clear to me from a very young age of the apparent lack of money and the stress that would cause, and the frustrations it would put on, well, it can just put on families as a whole. Just if you're in a position where you can't afford food and barely scrape by to pay the bills, it's going to cause a lot of issues. And if everything in your house is based around hand-me-downs, like hand-me-down carpets and sofas, just everything in the house being hand-me-down and nothing can really be afforded, then it does put certain strains and stresses. And so I suppose, from an extremely young age, I became aware of that and was like, okay, well, therefore, if I have money, then I can eradicate those issues and live happier. Although I say this, but I did have a phase in my life, I think it was when I was like at art college and uni, and I really didn't care for money. I didn't care at all about having lots of it or excessive things. I just loved, like, as well in my life, everything was around upcycling, sustainability anyway, and like all my clothes were cheaply acquired or like old mates, and mates of mine giving me their old stuff, and it was all a lot around swapping and charity shops, that kind of thing, which is very much now. I did go through a little phase where I wanted expensive things and had like ridiculous outfits that cost stupid money, but that's gone for good. But I did go through this phase where I actively almost detested money and liked the idea of finding a way to live without such a need for money, and it was based around the exchange of value. And where I studied art, I painted, so it was like, well, maybe I'll live a life where I can exchange my painting for something else. Someone has something I need, I have a painting, we can just exchange so that I can be nourished for however many days, weeks, or someone's got a place over in another country, I can go stay there by giving them a piece of artwork. So they get artwork, I get to stay in France for a week in the summer with my family or what. I think that came from my dad, in terms of my dad was very focused on money. When are you going to get money? How are you going to afford to live? Where are you going to get money? Where are you going to get money? Where are you going to get money? And I was like, just grew to be such a test for it that I was like, I actively don't want it, or I just want enough to get by so that I can have a home, eat, do my art and skate all the time and build my family around that, around exploring these wondrous endeavours that are just purely about enjoyment, and it's not about working constantly and earning money. But business did reinvigorate that desire for wealth, for money, and initially it was quite a toxic trait. As I said, like I had this phase of having expensive outfits that seemed ridiculous, but I still found a way to budget them. But anyway, like I had this desire of having this big fancy mansion and this vision of one day getting up in the morning for a meeting and coming down to the garage at like 6 a.m. and already suited and booted in my fancy Savile Row suit, going to the garage and be like, Aston Martin, Bentley, or the Rolls, which one am I taking to the meeting today? And having that. But now I look back on that, I just think that's ridiculous. Like, what could be more like stuck in that materialistic way? I mean, I did have this, alongside that vision, I was conscious of my own spending, but as well finding a way to sort of level it out and justify it with, well, if I'm going to buy a 300 grand car, I want to have 600 grand so that I can spend 300 grand on the car, and 300 grand is invested or donated in some way to help others. I can't justify spending so much money on myself. I need to help others with just as much money. Whereas now I think more like, how can I just spend in a way that is just constantly in the essence of communities around, like, I still want a fancy car, I want to have a Tesla, but how can that Tesla benefit others? How, well, I've got a van with 2 seats, having this car that's built around a company whose mission is to transfer the world to sustainable energy. I can have this car with 5 seats, and therefore I can fit 5 people in it. So I can take 4 friends with me to go on these different trips and go skating and just be like, well, it doesn't care about fuel. Whether you've got money or not, if you've got a skateboard, yeah, let's just jump in, let's go skate, have a great day and have fun. You haven't got food, don't worry, I'll get you lunch or something while we're out. It's just about having experience and bringing as many people along with me. But that was my introduction to business. I love the idea of building money again and having lots of it. And obviously I was surrounded by people, like sitting in business meetings with like 50 people or so, and going to conferences with hundreds of people where it was all focused around working, wearing fancy clothes, getting nice cars, buying big houses, building successful businesses with lots of profits, lots of money, and be able to reap the rewards of that, which is true to a certain extent, but my philosophy around it, as I've shared with you today, is completely different around that. So I hope it's been helpful. I hope it's given you a sort of a key insight and given you some inspiration and motivation in terms of what your life is about, how you want to lead it, how you want to go forward, or maybe not. But my life is all around building sustainable wealth and hopefully helping as many people to come along on that journey with me. So until the next video. But before you go, if it is valuable, if you have enjoyed it, please make sure to like and subscribe.